Good day, citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. This is the post-cabinet briefing for cabinet meetings held Wednesday, July 18th and Monday, July 23rd, 2012. The meetings were held at the Cabinet Meeting Room, Government Headquarters, Church Street, Bastia, St. Kitts. The first segment of the report deals with decisions taken on Wednesday, July 18th. In response to the need to provide ongoing support for activities that will assist the growth prospects of the local economy, and in reflecting upon the growth challenges which have flowed out of the global economic recession, Cabinet approved 3 significant investment projects which are intended to boost the construction and tourism sectors. Spread over a period of 5 to 7 years, the construction projects are expected to inject in excess of 115 million Eastern Caribbean dollars into the local economy and provide hundreds of jobs for builders, tradesmen, and services providers. In addition to the jobs created in the development phases of the projects, long-term job prospects for our citizens and residents will be enhanced. One such approved project is a student complex with 46 apartments, student center, and overnight guest facilities, and which is seeking to respond to the expected increase in demand for student accommodation on St. Kitts. The second project is a 62-lot residential development phasing the construction of 20 cottages, 120 condominium units of different sizes, and common amenities over 5 to 7 years. The third project approved was that for the creation of a bowling alley with a number of services centers such as restaurants, arcades, and shops. Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Right Honourable Dr. Denzil L. Douglas, provided an update to the Cabinet of Ministers on the ongoing efforts to secure an investor for Clico International Life, or CIL, which would serve to restore the investments of hundreds of nationals who had invested in the insurance company. Since the collapse of the CL Financial Group in 2009, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, along with other governments of the region, has been working assiduously to recoup our citizens' investments. The Prime Minister reported that the appointed judicial manager for CIL in Barbados, that is Clico International Life in Barbados, Mr. Oliver Jordan of Deloitte Consulting Limited, after conducting an extensive search regionally and internationally, had received non-binding offers from 2 regionally based insurance companies for the purchase of Clico's traditional business. Traditional business consists of individual and group life insurance, pensions, and annuities. The condition of the sale is that sufficient assets of an acceptable nature must be transferred from CIL to the purchaser, and that there would be no cash sale of the assets, but rather a discounting of the portfolio liability. The Minister of Finance was careful to highlight that no investor had expressed an interest in the purchase of CIL's Executive Flexible Premium Annuities, or the EFPA product, as presently structured, but that some were interested in considering its purchase on the sum restructured arrangement. A recent valuation indicated that the asset position of CIL is in the vicinity of 440 million Barbados dollars region-wide, whereas the policyholder liability position is approximately 850 million Barbados dollars. For St. Kitts and Nevis, the policyholder liability of CIL is about 9 million Barbados dollars, or 12 million Eastern Caribbean dollars, with 5.6 million Barbados dollars, or 7.37 Eastern Caribbean dollars, of that amount allocated to the EFPA portfolio, and the balance of Barbados $3.54 million, or EC $4.63 million assigned to the traditional insurance business portfolio. Given the nature of the non-binding offer agreements which have been made, the assets of CIL will have to be converted into an acceptable format to facilitate the sale of CIL's insurance business to the new investors. A model for achieving this conversion was discussed and may require some limited level of guarantee by regional governments. Specifically, the Cabinet was asked to consider whether it would support the release of CIL's assets in St. Kitts and Nevis to facilitate the proposals. The impact of this model is that all traditional policyholders, that is, policyholders in individual and group life, pension, and annuities, would become new policyholders of the new insurance company. For the EFPA policyholders, based on the level of success of the asset conversion process, there is likely to be a payout of a fixed sum on the outstanding principal, with the balance on the principal discounted and converted into annuities. The second part of the report is in respect of Cabinet decisions taken on Monday, July 23rd. The Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Joseph Edmeade, was asked to provide a progress report on the planning of the 2012 Independence Celebration activities. The Cabinet Secretary assured the Cabinet of Ministers that the planning process was in full gear and being directed by a committee chaired by Ms. Sharon Rattan, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Culture, Social Development and Gender Affairs, particularly as it relates to National Heroes Day, September 16th, which falls on a Sunday this year, 2012. Cabinet approved the hosting of the National Independence Church service on Sunday, September 16th, and the declaration of Monday, September 17th as a public holiday and as the day designated for the traditional wreath-laying ceremony at the Sir Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw Memorial Park at St. Paul's. The independence theme selected for the 29th anniversary of our national independence is Cherishing Children, Strengthening Families. The theme recognizes the well-being of our nation's children and the stability of families as central to our overall social and economic prosperity. With a focus on returning St. Kitts and Nevis to a position of strong economic growth and job creation for our nationals, Cabinet approved 3 investment projects, the first of these being a villa project development on Nevis, which will see the construction of 114 condominium units in 8 phases over 5 years. This project will also provide a conference center and other common amenities and facilities. The other 2 projects supported were a spare parts retail outlet and a web application development business. The web application business will require local software developers, designers and architects, graphic designers, sales and marketing personnel, and managerial personnel. Cabinet is strongly of the view that every opportunity must be taken to empower local entrepreneurs, create employment and drive economic growth, and sees the approval of these projects as contributing to the attainment of these critical national objectives. After widespread consultation conducted by the government, in 2011, Parliament passed the Public Service Act in 2011. The Act makes further provisions relating to the structure, organization and management of the public service, including matters to do with the Public Service Commission and the appointment, discipline and removal of public officers. To fully operationalize the Act, that is, the Public Service Act, it is required that supporting regulations and standing orders be promulgated to achieve the intended increased transparency, accountability, productivity and efficiency of the public service. The Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, the Honourable Patrice Nisbet, being very cognizant of these requirements, presented to the Cabinet of Ministers for its advice and approval drafts of the following regulations and orders. The Public Service Recruitment and Employment Code. 2. The Public Service Code of Conduct and Ethics. 3. The Public Service Standing Orders. And finally, the Public Service Code of Discipline. The Public Service Recruitment and Employment Code seeks to put in place methods to be used in the recruitment and promotion of public service officers to ensure fairness and the absence of irrelevant, discriminatory and arbitrary considerations in employment and promotion matters. The Public Service Code of Conduct and Ethics specifies the values that public officers are expected to uphold in the provision and administration of the public services for which the government is responsible, and in assisting in the formulation of public policy that will direct the activities of government. Such values include integrity, honesty, impartiality, professionalism, objectivity, and regard for accuracy and timeliness. The Public Service Standing Orders makes provision relating to the following matters: salaries and allowances, including acting allowances of officers, leaves of absence, including sick leave, maternity, and other forms of leave, advances, subsistence, travelling, and other related allowances, and the duty of heads and all public officers in relation to the standing orders. The Public Service Code of Discipline, finally, will make provisions to ensure that standards of conduct laid down by the Public Service Act and its associated regulations are observed, and will put in place measures to ensure the existence of fairness, including reposing powers in an investigative officer to enforce the provisions of the Code. The 4 previously mentioned regulations and standing orders were thoroughly discussed and approved for promulgation, which would be done very, very shortly. This brings to an end the post-Cabinet briefing for Cabinet meetings held Wednesday, July 18th and Monday, July 23rd, 2012. I thank you. Good day.